If you're listening to this, the good news is the first episode of the Medics Money MBA was so popular with you guys, we've released another episode, a sequel, if you will. If you haven't listened to or watched the first episode on YouTube, the basic idea of the Medics Money MBA is that if you want to start a business, you got basically two options: a formal MBA, which takes years and costs thousands of pounds, or what we're calling the Medics Money MBA, where we just share what we've learned building up our own businesses and we break down other businesses run by healthcare professionals. And back for the sequel once again is Sanay Goyal. Hi, Sanay.
Hey Tommy, pleasure to be back. I really enjoyed the last episode. This is great. We're going to be breaking down another exciting business this episode. Also, for everyone listening who don't know me, I host a podcast over on What Medical School Doesn't Teach Us, and also sometimes write the newsletter over there. And it's a channel dedicated by Medics Money for junior doctors and medical students. So do check it out if you fall into one of those categories. And I also recently completed my business management intercalation at Imperial College London, hence why my interest in business and hence why I'm here with Tommy breaking down some exciting businesses.
You missed a few key things out from your CV, which is you're also Medics Money Head of Advertising Sales, which is going really well.
Yep, absolutely. So if you would like to sponsor this podcast or a newsletter, then get in touch with me. Available on LinkedIn, and then you can find my email down in the description below maybe. Yeah, that, and also, like I said earlier, just a fourth year medical student. Actually, someone told me never to say just, so scrap that. I'm a fourth year medical student. And yeah, actually what we're talking about today aligns very closely with the kind of business I run. So I'll be sharing some tips and tricks, particularly for all those doctors looking to get into private practice, if I tease you all.
Yeah, that is a good tease. So just a quick recap. Last time we told you about a £50 million a year business, which is probably in your pocket right now. We showed you how to check the financial performance of any limited company in the UK, which is a genius way to find out what's working and what's not. We break down why internet businesses have really healthy profit margins. So today I thought we would talk about what I think is the most common. So lots of doctors looking for side hustle, right? The oldest side hustle in the game for doctors is private practice. And we talked about this before on the pod, and actually some private consultants came up to me and were like, that analysis was bang on, which is good because I don't practice privately and I'm not a consultant. But what the problems that I see with private practice are severalfold. Number one, my main problem is that you are the product. And so you are trading your time for money, because if somebody comes to see you privately, you normally end up doing the operation or seeing the patient. There's no leverage in private practice, which means that you do an insanely long day in the NHS, and then you get to go to do some more insanely long hours in a private hospital because you've got no leverage. And leverage is where you can multiply your skills. Instead of just trading your 1 hour of your time for 1 hour of money, you can, get some leverage in there. There's not much leverage in private practice. Well, so I thought, until we look at today's business, because I love it. The other problem I think as well is getting new customers is really hard. And I've called this CAC. I don't want to introduce jargon this early in the podcast, but CAC is what I would say customer acquisition cost. And if your customer acquisition cost is really high, it's going to reduce your profitability. And customer acquisition cost to a private practice is really high, potentially. Other problems is that you spend your entire career building up this amazing private practice where you are the product and you have an amazing reputation and patients only want to see you. Guess what? When you retire, that business is not in any way sellable. Like, I am not going to buy your private practice off you, because the first question when the patients sit down is going to be, where's Dr. Goyal gone? And I'm going to be like, Dr. Goyal's retired, but I'm your new guy and I'm just as good. They're just going to be like, no thanks. So it's not sellable. It's also really hard to scale. So that sounds a bit negative, because I know lots of people, doing really well with private practice, and it is the OG side hustle for doctors, and I think probably still one of the best. But I want to show you someone who I think is doing a really great job of it, and that is Dr. Louise Newsome, who is the Menopause GP. You familiar with Louise Newsome?
I was not familiar with Louise Newsome until you told me about it, if I'm completely honest. It might be because I don't really follow that kind of social media on my social media platforms, but also probably because I'm not in the I'm not Dr. Goyal yet, as you said earlier. Probably both of those things, but absolutely mind blowing. Yeah, I'm going to let you talk about it because you introduced me to her. So
Yeah. I'm pretty hyped up today, not just because of the content, but I've been on a massive bike ride this morning and I'm way over caffeinated now. But basically, right, I found out about this because we nearly made it to number 1 in the podcast chart, really nearly. And, that's cool. I'd like to say I wasn't bothered about becoming number 2 and not making it to number 1, but I am. And the person who crushed us on number 1 spot was Dr. Louise Newsome, who has an amazing podcast about the menopause. And the week that we did really well, she had Davina McCall on. I was like, oh, come on, like that's not fair, is it? Get Davina McCall on. So that's how I found out about her. And then I started to look into like how this business works. And I actually think this is totally genius, right? Because essentially, as the name suggests, she kind of has a menopause. She specializes in the menopause. So she's a GP by training. She specializes in the menopause. And I think that's point number 1 if you're a GP looking to do private practice. The problem with GP private practice is that you're competing with an NHS product that's free at the point of delivery. And competing with a product that's free at the point of delivery is really, really hard. It's hard for me to say, look, come and see me as a private GP for £150 for 20 minutes versus go see your NHS GP for free at the point of delivery. I know it's not free, but it's free at the point of delivery. And so your free product either has to be really, really good, really, really bad, so that that people pay for the private product, or it needs to be in an underserved niche. That is something that the NHS doesn't do that well. So we could argue about whether NHS GPs do a good job with the menopause. Personally, at my practice, I think we do an excellent job. But there is this perception that they don't. And other things is like aesthetics. That's a big men's health and well-being. I get 10 minutes with a patient as an NHS GP. It's very hard to impart some well-being wisdom in 10 minutes because I'm basically focused on other more important things in inverted commas. So I think she's done well there. She's picked an underserved niche. But that's not really the main interest of me. I think like this is an example of what's called the creator economy. And if that's the first time you've heard those words, the creator economy, I think, is going to be absolutely huge. The basic idea is you build up an audience of people that know, like, and trust you, and then you can offer them tons of value from your free products. But if they want to take the next step and pay you can do that as well. And this is something that's only really become popular in the last maybe 10 years, because you've got like YouTube, you've got podcasts, you've got social media. All of these things are, you don't have to pay. They're free. Well, they're not free, but they're reasonably well priced, and you can reach a ton of people. So yep. Louise Newsome has built up a massive social media presence. I think you said that she'd written a book as well, Sanay.
So Tommy's taken us through tons of things there really quickly.
Told you I was over caffeinated, mate. I'm really buzzing. Wind it back.
Let's wind it back slightly. So starting with private GPs or just private consultant or anything, often all of you are working in silos, I would say, unless you're working at like one of the bigger sort of private sort of healthcare firms, like such as HCA Healthcare, Spire, Circle Health. Everyone's often working as a silo, and often that's actually why you're also very limited in what you can offer your patients. Sure, you refer to other private consultants and so on, you've got that network, but you're never really able to scale that because you're still selling your time for money, as Tommy said. And that's where Louise Newsome is outdone literally everyone in the private sector right now, because she's not only selling her time for money, but she's also doing other things that we're going to be talking about. Picking an undeserved niche. That definitely works if you're a GP or if you're sort of a junior doctor as well, because a lot of junior docs now are going into aesthetics, right? Like so many of them are starting very successful aesthetics businesses simply by having a great online presence, using that creator economy to fuel their growth essentially, and lowering that customer acquisition cost, which Tommy mentioned earlier. The entire point of all of this is to make it so easy to get that next customer in through the door. And actually nothing sells better than word of mouth. And guess what? Word of mouth is free. So if you can just have your business grow, your private practice grow on the back of word of mouth, which is what creator economy and all these other processes help you do, then you're sailing, easy cruising. So bringing on to what we were talking about in terms of Louise, she's doing traditional private practice, but with a twist, and the creator economy. So I was looking at the creator economy, and so just to give you an idea of the creator economy, so currently it's worth around $250 billion according to Goldman Sachs, and it's supposed to grow to around $500 billion by 2027. That's literally in 3 years. $500 billion industry. That's mind-blowing. I think that's incredibly crazy. I mean, I'm a product of the creator economy. Like, the way I started is I just started posting on LinkedIn, writing a newsletter, and that's how Tommy found me. Actually, he just found me completely, like, the word is like serendipitously off LinkedIn, and I had no idea who Tommy was before that. Really, I had listened to the podcast, but I didn't really know him personally, and now here I am doing a podcast with him. It really helps. The creator economy is incredible. Platforms like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, even Facebook. Facebook's just Reels now. Some people are also on Snapchat as well. Like, people do Snapchat as well. Very, in my opinion, untapped social media platform to be using. And also like other gaming platforms like Twitch. All these have really put through and really showcased creators who are able to build large audiences, build trust, and essentially grow a personal brand, which is what Dr. Louise Newsome's done. She's built this personal brand. She's got her name out there in front of people as a leading menopause expert, as a GP. And obviously she's got excellent training because she's a UK medical qualified doctor. She's gone to a great medical school, and she's done great training, and now she's used all of her teachings and learnings to build this personal brand by sharing valuable information with her audience on menopause, and really sort of carving out a niche by being the menopause doctor. I believe her Instagram handle is even the menopause doctor, which is simply incredible, because like what that means is when you go on Instagram, you type in menopause, it's very likely she comes up simply because of her Instagram handle. So all of these things have led to building this traditional private practice model, but then just adding this twist of the creator economy for incredible success.
Definitely, right? So you've got all of these people, you built this massive audience, and if you funnel all those people into just like she's the only doctor that you can see, that is not going to work. That's not going to scale. You've still got that problem of traditional private practice where you're the only thing, you're the product. But what Louise has done really well is that she's built up multiple clinic locations, multiple clinicians, and she's built this out. So most people, when they go to her clinic, are not going to see her, they're going to see one of her staff. Okay, so she has taken that step from her being the product to her not being the product, and that means that she's got more time, and she's built leverage into it. So that's why I love it, because it's not all funneling it into herself, it's funneling it into her multiple clinic locations, and she's built basically a productized service where you go there and you want to get your menopause sorted for X amount of pounds. So Louise is not the product, which is why, well, one of the things I love about this, right? Sanay has really covered well how instead of paying for Google ads, right, she's just building out podcast, YouTube, Instagram, which is essentially free. I mean, I hate saying that's free because it's not free at all. Someone's got to do it, but it's almost certainly cheaper than pay-per-click Google ads, etc. like that, okay? So that's pretty cool, right? And that's a nice little business.
Absolutely. I mean, for someone whose my side hustle, and this is something I fell into, not necessarily by choice, but it just fell into because of the work I was doing, is essentially working with a lot of private practicing clinicians to grow their private practice. And, a lot of the growth simply comes from content creation and sharing knowledge. You don't ever want to come across as someone who's trying to sell your services. You want to come across as someone who's freely sharing information. And then, once that person has digested that information and is stuck or needs further help, that's when they'll come and see you. Now, there's two faults to it. I think Louise Newsome's done a great job of putting herself in front of the camera, and actually a lot of consultants may not, one, have the time to do that, or two, want to do that. And that's completely understandable. But that doesn't mean that you need to stop sharing content. You can share content in other ways. So, a lot of private practice consultants do, I think, a lot of you guys do have websites, I would say. A lot of you guys do other kinds of work. And you can always write a couple of blog articles. You can write a couple of other ways to share that information with your potential patients on a website. You can have a gentle Instagram, lots of different ways to share that same information. And that will allow you to grow your private practice very successfully. And talking about Louise and talking about productized services, I think it's absolutely incredible. what she's done in the sense that I was reading this topic on ladders of wealth creation in a video as well. I read it on like Nathan Barry, this guy from ConvertKit, but also in Ali Abdal's video, and he talks about how everyone starts off by selling their time for money, which is what Louise Newsome did, which is what a lot of us are doing. And then you essentially progress that into where you run your own service business, which is what Louise Newsome probably did next, which is set up a clinic and then run a service-based business. So, set up a private practice essentially. And then you run productized services, which is where you have a fixed price for a fixed scope. And you're no longer selling your time for money because you've got this entire team that you built out when you're running a service-based business. And you've just got recurring services now because you've got people regularly booking in for those follow-up appointments, for those new patients coming in as well, for new referrals. And it's just recurring revenue. And I think that's what we linked back to in our first episode as well when we talked about the blue light card, is recurring revenue. It's so important to ensure that you have those patients coming in over and over again. And it's absolutely fantastic. And that lowers, again, the CAC, the customer acquisition cost, lowers that completely, and it gets better and better from there.
Do you know what, right? I don't know this because I haven't seen the accounts, but I reckon she could have a negative customer acquisition cost, i.e. she could be making money from her advertising channels greater than she's spending acquiring customers, right? If you can get a zero customer acquisition cost is good, right? But the creator economy allows you to get a negative customer acquisition cost through the various ways that you can monetize your content online. But the main reason I think that she might have a negative CAC, which is just like the holy grail for a creator, in my opinion, is the Balance app. Okay, so when I was looking into this, I was loving the podcast. I was loving the kind of business model, the fact that she's not the product, and then I found the app, and I was just blown away by this, because probably one of the most profitable business models in the modern age is software as a service. You build an app and you spend a lot of money developing the app, but then you can sell that app. If 1,000 people go and download her app after listening to this, she's not going to have to do any more work. It's literally all profit from there on. So software as a service, and some of the biggest companies in the world, the most profitable companies in the world, are software as a service businesses, right? So she's got this app, which is called, is it called Balance?
Yep, it's called Balance. It's the menopause support app.
Okay,
that's
I love
the
this.
Catchphrase.
I love it, right? Because it's free to download and you get a certain amount of content for free, okay? If you and then beyond that, there's a paid content tier. I've forgotten how much it is, but beyond that, you get a bit more extra personalization and some useful features like tracking your cycles and your symptoms and stuff if you pay a bit more, right? So that's great. That's a nice little standard software as a service business model. You get the freemium plan, which is free, and above that, you get a bit of extra, okay? But if you think about what that app does, let's just say you start off on the free and you think, oh, this is good, I'm going to convert to the paid app. You're on the paid app and you're getting more and more research, and you're accessing high quality information written by a doctor, yeah, not the usual stuff that we see across social media, which is of variable quality. But you're there in your app, and then you're like, oh, I really wish I could just see someone and ask them a few questions about this. Well, guess what? In the app, there's a link to book a consultation. So people are paying her via this app to go and see her, and then they pay her to go and see her at a clinic. I just think that is next level. I haven't seen too many other people do that, and I absolutely love it. And the reason I love it is that I think someone, or many people, could just repeat this 1,000 times over. Literally copy what she's done, not in the menopause space, but in men's health space or the well-being space or all these other spaces. But what do you think about the app? Because I know you've been having a play with the app as well.
Yeah, I mean, the app is simply incredible. It's almost like the nail in the coffin. I think, getting on Instagram and creating the reels is great. Yeah, writing books is great. That's what every creator does. Yeah, having a clinic is great, but an app I think that is like creme de la creme, like cherry on the top, I think, because it's like you said, it's anyone can download, and because they follow a freemium version, like a freemium model where there is free content and then there's a paid tier, it just makes it so accessible to people, and it makes it so easy. So I could be talking to someone else and I'll just be I use Balance to track for menopause. It's great. Like friends could share with each other, like word of mouth. Again, it comes back to that. It makes it so easy, and it's in your pocket all the time, so you're aware of it and you're interacting daily with it essentially. Because if there's a tracker in there and so on, that means you have to constantly update it. It's like any other sort of wearable tech kind of thing. Like you go in there, you update it constantly, and that's so important because part of the creator economy is the touch points that your audience has with you. So, for example, how often are they digesting your information? So, people on there are going to be digesting, on the app, people are going to be digesting Dr. Louise Newsom's information quite often, quite regularly, which makes them more inclined to essentially purchase that product. So if the content on there, the free content is really valuable, which it is, then those people are then more likely to purchase the paid version of it essentially, or buy the subscription. And then once they use that, and then at that point it's kind of a no-brainer in terms of how, like, if they have a menopause problem, for them to then just book into to Newsom clinics, it's a no-brainer. Now my only question, and I mean I guess we won't know the answer to this, and it's not on their website, is do the doctors at Newsom clinics have access to the app data, in the sense that would allow them to provide personalized care as well, which I think is just a massive bonus. Because one of the biggest issues that we have in the NHS, I think, is like this sort of fragmented care where people don't necessarily have access to all the patient information, patient data. But if this patient is literally, or this potential patient is on your app and they're storing their data on there, and then they go see the same apps like doctor, like it's just seamless. It's so integrated. And you just provide way better care than would be possible otherwise.
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's like so many iterations of that. You could use like machine learning to, sort of say, if you see the symptoms getting worse, you could send them a message via the app saying, we see your symptoms are getting worse. You're like, why don't you come back for another consultation? Or great that your symptoms are getting better. If you need any more help, don't forget to come back for a consultation. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's that level of integration. I did notice in the app, there's the ability to kind of save your data and export it, so you could show a clinician how things are going. So I guess that is that, but the next level, that would be machine learning kind of thing. I guess, like, just thinking about it as if I was Louise, if I'm going to build out an app with some kind of machine learning thing, the development costs there are going to go crazy, right? And we are in a niche here, and yeah, it's a lucrative niche, but we can't be spending $500 million on developing this app, because otherwise this ain't going to be a viable business. So the app is nice. I don't know how much it costs, but I would say somewhere between 80 and 120K to build that kind of app out. If you added in the machine learning, trust me, I've looked into this, the bill is going to be wild. So I guess that's the thing about running a business. You got to weigh up the pros and cons, and you can't be dropping $500 million on something where the total market size is, I don't know, 100 million, for example, because you're never going to get your money back. You're going to go bust.
Yep, you're right. Absolutely. I guess, if you create this app, it's sort of just get the basics right, I think, more than anything. Just make sure you're providing good quality content. I think that is, if you really want to harness the power of the creator economy, it is simply provide good quality content, and it is simply ensure that whatever you do, you're building that trust and you're building authority. So yes, there's one, personal branding, but then it's also brand authority. So there's no point building a personal brand but then not having any authority with it. So you want to build a personal brand where you're getting out in front of people, you're gaining those. Oh, actually, don't fall for this trap, which I was just about to tell you. It's like, don't look at the followers, look at the quality of followers. That's really important. So yeah, you could have 2,000 followers or 1,000 followers, but then if you're getting like next to no engagement, there's no value in that. But if you have like 500 followers and you're getting like 400 of those 500 liking your posts every time, or interacting with your video every time, that's fantastic. That's what you want. That's you building authority, and that's you building an engaged audience. So just be careful of that trap when you start. But absolutely, yeah. So build personal brand, but also build brand authority. And brand authority comes from providing that evidence-based, factual, medical content for people that's digestible, is bite-sized, and it's easy to action. Those three things. So important.
Yeah, definitely. And like, to your point, what we always say, not just because we've got a small audience, but audience size does not equal audience quality. Exactly to your point. Yeah. And I guess, I think the other thing I like about Louise is that there is a lot of clickbait content, and to a certain extent, if you're going to play this game, you've got to play the clickbait game. I'm sure this YouTube video will have a clickbait title on it. If it doesn't, I'm going to be cracking some whips. But she doesn't really do crazy clickbait. Okay, she got Davina McCall on her pod, and that was so she could defeat the mighty Medics Money podcast in the race for #1 spot on the charts. I'm not bitter about that. I've totally forgotten about it, even though it was like 2 years ago. But, you know, yeah, I think she stays pretty classy, retains her authority, and basically she's literally carved out herself as a person of authority in this area. Like, turn on the TV and she's on there giving her opinion on some kind of menopause thing. Yeah, I like it. But the main reason I like it is because she's got leverage. She's no longer restricted to her working all hours of the day and night, servicing thousands of private patients. She's got a load of employees at multiple clinic locations across the globe. She's got an app which is servicing her patients while she sleeps, or while she goes on holiday, or while she goes for a 100k bike ride in the morning. But yeah, okay, what else can we learn from this? Because, like, we've talked about the creator economy a lot, right? And I kind of think about, like, so let's just say you build a massive audience, okay, of people that know, like, and trust you. I like Creator 1.0 is like, make money from that using affiliate links and AdSense, which, for those that don't know, is like YouTube will pay you money to run ads on your content. And yeah, so that's like Creator 1.0. I don't think Creator 1.0 works for doctors, because you need a massive audience to make any money at all from AdSense. Like, I think we make between 40 and 80 pounds a month from AdSense on YouTube. It's totally inconsequential. So it does work if you've got a massive audience like Mr. Beast or other massive audiences. But in a niche, I'm not convinced that AdSense works that well. And I think the other reason why AdSense doesn't work is that the people that are listening to this and watching this are most likely doctors, highly educated people, and also high value customers. But YouTube just pays me the same as if I was streaming a gaming channel with a load of 14-year-olds watching me play Mario Kart or whatever. That's the only game I really know, Mario Kart. So that's like Creator 1.0. Creator 2.0, next step is like brand deals. So maybe if you're a menopause specialist, you could advertise menopause products, okay? A bit more specific, bit more higher margins, and not relying on AdSense. So that could be good. Creator 3.0 is like your own product or service that you deliver. Not bad. Creator 4.0, top of the tree, is like a productized service, an app. I just like, this is Creator 4.0 in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. And I guess, you know, what's really important through those 4 stages of like creator growth for private practice is that you need to own your audience. And what I mean by that is, yeah, going on YouTube and whatever is great, but actually, like, your YouTube account could get struck down and then you lose all of your subscribers. Or you could go on Instagram and you get banned for something that's, I don't know, you could get banned for anything these days, to be honest. And then you lose all of your followers on there. And you go on TikTok, similar thing can happen. So what's really important is that whilst you're building this audience on any of these platforms and you're using that, you need to find a way to get them off that platform and onto your own, which is what Dr. Louise Newsome's done. And she's done this through many different ways. So she's got her own website. She's got a Newson Health website for menopause. She's got app, right? So once people download that app, those people are like the app is owned by Newson Health, right? It's not owned by anyone else, so it can't go anywhere. Those people can't go anywhere. She's probably got she's got a newsletter, so email is brilliant. It's probably one of the best ways to you know, own your audience and not be trapped by, you know, getting banned by something else, and that's really, really important. And so once you've got all of that and you own your audience, that's when you can start moving through these stages of creator growth a lot more rapidly, because you're not reliant on anyone else. You know, you're not reliant on any other platform for making it work for you. So you don't have to rely on AdSense anymore or affiliate links. And, you know, the brand deals become more lucrative because you own your audience. So you can charge better sometimes. And then, yeah, once you've got that audience that you own on your own platform, it's just another channel for you to start selling your own products and services through. So you can obviously use the social media platforms and other platforms to get wide global reach, and then you can sort of send targeted products and services through your personal channels that you've got, so for example, your newsletter. And then the same with productized services. So make sure that when you start, or if you start going down this path, that you definitely start, or you have an idea of how you're going to get these people, this audience that you've built, off your social media platform onto a platform that you cannot sort of get striked off, essentially, is so important.
Like, absolutely vital. And this is what like we realized really early on at Medics Money is don't build your farm on rented land. And by that, exactly what Sanay just said. If you're relying on YouTube, that's an algorithm driven growth platform, okay, which can be great. But if the algorithm turns against you, or you get cancelled, or you get shut down, or whatever, suddenly you cannot build a business on just that, I don't think, personally, because that is rented land. Same for social, same for Instagram. You don't own the data, Meta does, right? That is a bad situation to be in. As soon as possible, you need to get your audience off of rented land, social media, YouTube, and onto land that you control, which is like your website, your email list. Podcast to a certain degree, I think, because podcast growth is not algorithm driven, really. So yeah, get off the rented land onto some land that you own ASAP. And also, I think that's quite a good test. And this is going to link me nicely into what we should do next with this, okay? Because I've been thinking about this a bit and I want to shoot this out with you. So yeah, you got to get them off. Say like you make some content and at the end you say, okay, if you want to know more, put your email in here, okay? If people won't even give you your email address, right, you have a big problem. Because if they won't even give you your email address, they ain't going to give you anything else, okay? So I think that email is a great initial test, okay? Because it's easy to click like or follow or whatever on social, right? But if you're going to give someone your email, that's a valuable bit of personal data. You're saying, I like you so much, I'm happy for you to invade my inbox on a weekly or daily or whatever basis with some relevant information. And if people won't even do that, I think you've got a problem. Which kind of links me to what we should do about the Medics Money MBA, right? Because I think like this is like a little experiment that we're doing. We're experimenting on our main podcast channel, which is pretty risky, but we de-risk that experiment by just running the first episode and then looking at the metrics, and the metrics look good. So that's why you're hearing the second episode. But I don't think the Medics Money podcast can become the Medics Money MBA podcast, because it's not why we're going here. But lots of people are interested in building a side hustle, building a business, and learning. Like, we're happy to like share what we've learned as we go along. So what about if we throw up a landing page, and if you're interested in more of this content, like a mini newsletter, and let's just see how it goes, right?
Yep, absolutely. And that, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's so valuable. Just like, I mean, email in my opinion, email is what I started with. And actually, you know, if you're in this creator space, or you've been reading up on creators and stuff, which is what I spent a lot of my time doing before I started doing any of this, all of the creators would go and say, I wish I started my newsletter earlier. All of them say that without fault. All of them. They're all like, I really wish I started my newsletter earlier. And the reason they say that is because it is single-handedly the best. Like, an email newsletter is the best ROI you will ever get. You know, there's so many different creator platforms out there as well now. Like, you can use ConvertKit. I personally use Beehive, which is the fastest growing one for creators and even small sort of creator brands. Absolutely great. They allow you to get thousands of subs on for free, and they provide great interfaces. Like, for example, Beehive, so we're going off tangent here from Tommy's point, coming back to it, but Beehive allows you to build your own website because they recently acquired TypeDream, which is this AI website builder, and you can just build a free website completely free of cost on there alongside your newsletter, all using AI as well. Like, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? So you absolutely do that. In terms of the Medics Money MBA, absolutely, I've loved doing the previous episode. Like, it's been great fun, and I've loved doing this episode. And I think Tommy's absolutely right. I think we would love to hear from you. I think, you know, not only like drop your email, but I think we could set up the landing page to be like, tell us one business that you want us to break down for you. Like, it's not just Tommy and I who are going to have interesting businesses that we want to talk about. I mean, we've got a list that we've been working on, but I'm sure you've been walking around and being like, I really wonder how that business works and whether that could be done in medicine, or, you know, whether I could create something similar, or, you know, how does it happen? How does it work? What are the principles that they use to grow, and why are they successful? And, you know, I think both of those things, it'd be great. And absolutely, that email newsletter come into your inbox with top tips on how to run your private practice or other MBA content would be extremely useful.
Yeah, and like we could also just put like interesting stuff that we notice like as we're just cruising around, because once you get in the mindset of the Medics Money MBA, which is looking at what other people are doing, investigating the numbers like we talked about last time, and just thinking about how they get customers and how they grow, like the sky's the limit, right? So like, yeah, I think let's fire up a landing page, medicsmoney.co.uk/MM MBA. Do you think that's catchy enough?
Just MBA, just MBA.
All right,
No,
MBA.
no
Yeah,
MBA, I think.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so if you want to know more and you want more of this type of content, because I don't know if we're going to do any more of this in the public channels, because for the reasons I outlined, don't want to burn down the Medics Money podcast house. Go to medicsmoney.co.uk/MBA. Join the list. I love that idea of telling us one thing that you're working on, or like, getting some feedback from the listeners. That would be awesome. What we'll do is we'll send out some emails of regular, things that we like and hints and tips. And I think we're going to do a few more of these episodes. But right now, I got to go pick up the kids from school. I got cramp in my thigh. Probably went a bit hard this morning. You also might have noticed that I got up at 7 and just jumped straight on my bike. I forgot to shave, so I'm not looking that smooth. But you got any more tips before we wrap it up?
Probably my biggest tip for private practice is the one that I've always said over and over to people, the consultants I've worked with, is customer service, I think. And that is in the shape of content. I think there is so much misinformation out there these days with all these like upcoming gurus. It's so important for you to be like a voice of reason and actually share factual content and make sure it's great. And do your due diligence when sharing that information. And if you can do that really well, you don't need to have 100,000 followers on Instagram. Your private practice will succeed because people will realize like you're providing good content, good care, good service, and you really care about the person you're treating. But yeah, no, Tommy, that's probably the biggest tip I'll give.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like just get started. Like a lot of doctors, we're perfectionists, and in our day job, anything less than perfect is not ideal. But don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Like if you just sat waiting between patients and you've got 10 minutes, right? Fire up your ring light, hit record on your phone, and just talk about a subject, because you have amazing training, amazing skills, and amazing authority. And yeah, the video is not going to be the most polished, but guess what? Like an actual consultant wearing their actual clothes in an actual clinic is so much more authentic than about 98% of the financial influence, the healthcare influencer space. So just go for it. Like, yeah, regrettably, I forgot to have a shave before this, and me and Sanay literally just hit record. But it's good enough, hopefully. So don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Just get started. And maybe we should break down people that are doing this really well. I hardly go on Instagram, but previous podcast guest, Mr. Joe Mangiale, is an ENT surgeon in London. And I love his Instagram. It's amazing. Like he's also playing in a band, right? So I've got a bit of a man crush on this guy. He's like a musician. He's like amazing and funny on Instagram, but all his stuff is like set to music. So I don't know his Instagram handle. I'm afraid this would be a good time to drop it in, but maybe we could get him on and do it. And I'm sure you've got a few other people that we could break down sensitively.
Absolutely, yeah. Joe Mangiale is really, really cool. But the other one I really like is Midlife Crisis, Dr. Rohin Francis. So he's actually got a massive YouTube, but his Instagram is hilarious. It's really funny. And he actually rips into a lot of these healthcare influencers who are providing misinformation. So absolutely, I think maybe that's an idea for next episode.
Let's get him on. Yeah, let's do it. Right, I got to go, mate. But medicsmoney.co.uk/MBA if you want to join this newsletter where we're going to be getting more into side hustles. I don't know where this is going, but we're testing out. We're moving from Creator 1.0 to 1.5. Let's see if we get to 4. Thanks so much for watching, listening. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, drop some comments in the comments about businesses that we should break down, or questions that you want to ask, or how things work, because that will help us to make better content for you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well, alongside the comments. Very important. Keeps us going. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.